14box.com here, and we're going to be checking out this video called Romance Scam Victim Lost $500,000, and apparently she shares her story for the first time ever. And this video was back in like May 7th of 2018 by WPTV News, Florida Palm Beaches, and Treasure Coast. So I thought this would be a pretty interesting thing to really react to and cover because nowadays in 2022, at the time of this recording, these sort of like romance scams are like extremely prevalent, right? Like to such like a disturbing amount that not too long ago, someone got like a girl got scammed out of her money and her dad's money to the tune of I think almost like 300, $400,000, right? So it's getting really nuts, especially with the like rise of social media and dating apps. Like these types of scams are so prevalent and so profitable for these scam artists. It's getting nuts. So let's check it out.
He lived in Orlando. And once it started moving forward, I wanted to meet him. It was like, let's get this thing. I want everything out in the open. And then he had a trip he had to go to California.
Did you guys ever like FaceTime or Skype or video chat? So you never met?
That right there is like a massive red flag, right? If someone is like messaging you and you're having some sort of like romantic connection with them and they're not willing to like video call you with nowadays if you have like an iPhone, you could FaceTime someone. If you have an Android phone, you could do whatever kind of thing. I mean like there's like so many apps out there nowadays that you could literally just do like some sort of video call. Facebook I think has like Facebook Messenger where you could just do video calls easily, right? There's Skype, there's Discord. Like there's so many things out there. Like it doesn't make sense nowadays where you're just going to trust that someone can't video call you, right?
No, because he went to California very shortly after we started talking. And he was going, when I say this stuff now, I kind of laugh at it. He was going there because he was investing in some gold and he was needed to go over to Africa. Um,
Red flag right there. Why on earth is he investing into gold? That's a horrible investment. Why are you going into Africa, right?
and once he got there, he never came back. There was always a reason. And I've seen this with other women. They've talked about whoever they were involved with had stories of investments, and all of a sudden they needed money. They couldn't get out of the country. You know, they had one emergency after another.
How much did you send him? All total over.
Oh man, like this is like a little bit hard to actually like look at, right? Because for those that are like listening to this, like you probably heard her breathe out pretty heavy, right? But like the look on her face when she had to like think about crap, you know, I sent him so much money. Like that was pretty hard to look at.
What I lost with him was probably well over 500,000.
Over 500,000.
Do you have $500,000 to give somebody?
I did everything. I cleaned myself out. I sold my house.
She sold her house?
Had to sell my house because I took a mortgage on my house. This
Oh
is so
my god.
totally out of character for me. I've got a very small family, and the family.
I think the biggest thing about these like romance games is that one, they typically try to go after people who are a little bit older. By a little bit older, I mean older, like retirement age. And they really prey on people's loneliness, right? Like these romance scams are like extremely predatory, right? Because you're not just going after people's money, you're going after their heartstrings, right? Like you're going after the fact that they feel so lonely that this is what they feel like is the right path for them because of how lonely they are. That's some dark stuff.
Family members that know her, they just, it's like they can't comprehend it because it's so out of character for me.
Why do you think you fell for it?
Because initially, the first time he wanted money was because he said he had adopted kids over there, and they needed money because credit card wouldn't work. I mean, the stories were elaborate. His credit card wouldn't work.
Wow, so the scammer even brought in like fake kids to help convince her. Like, hey, I need this because this is an emergency. Like, you don't want the kids to starve. That sort of thing. That's crazy.
He didn't have any money. He needed money to feed the kids. And I can remember walking across the Publix parking lot arguing with myself. And I'm like, if there's really kids that are hungry, you can't leave them go hungry. And that was the start of it.
Oh my god, this is crazy. Like this kind of like reminds me of like those like charity ads for like animals, and they have like that one girl with like the high pitched voice, singing, making you feel like a piece of crap because you haven't taken out your credit card or your debit card to like just give this charity all of your money, which I believe that charity probably doesn't even give the majority of the money that it actually gets from donations to the actual causes, I believe. Might be wrong on that, but wow.
I cut ties with him. And then he would keep calling me and I wouldn't answer the phone. And then eventually I'd pick up the phone.
And the guy on the other end of the line,
Why would he pick up the phone again? Why would someone end up leaving the situation and then picking up the phone again? Like, if someone ends up like ever like starting to, if like, for those that end up stumbling upon this episode, if you start giving someone money and then you're like, no, wait, I can't do this, there's something wrong here, block them. Block them. Block the number. Never talk to them ever again. Right? Don't just go like back and forth, back and forth. Like, oh, this sounds like an abusive relationship.
like on the phone, was it like a traditional phone? Like, saying we're overseas, like it's like calling yourself up? What did he sound like?
He had an accent. When I first started talking to him, I really couldn't understand him. I thought, well, this isn't going to go very well.
What kind of accent?
I couldn't put my finger on it. And he was telling me, I forgot what country he said he was born in. I couldn't identify the accent. But eventually I got to where I could understand him. Although a lot of times I had to say, I don't understand you, repeat it.
That's crazy. Like, think about that, right? It was so hard for her to really understand this person's accent to where she would actually end up having to ask the person to repeat it, and yet he's still able to scam her?
But then I found out after the fact that they kind of work in teams. So that doesn't mean I was talking to the same person all the time.
Right, exactly. So, what was your breaking point? Why did you decide to, like, obviously you cut him off and then you went back, and what happened?
Sent him more money, got in deeper, and at that point, I felt like I was chasing my money. I felt like if I backed out now, I would never have the chance.
Okay, so basically, this is more becoming into something kind of like the like lost cost fallacy kind of thing where like you either invested so much time or so much money into something that if you were to bail out now, that's basically admitting to yourself like, oh wow, I screwed up super badly, and basically not wanting to do that.
To get anything back. And it's funny because the women that I've talked to in the support groups, they all said the same thing. They were then chasing the money, like a gambler chases their money. And I, what kind of brought it to a head with my family was when I knew I made the first few mortgage payments, but then I knew I couldn't continue. And
Oh my god. You borrowed money from your friend throughout this?
And I think we were talking about how I was going to pay her back, and I think I was trying to borrow more money or something. And she's a licensed social worker, and so she was putting all the things together. And she says, "This is not like you. What is going on?" And so when I had to confess to her what was going on, then my brother-in-law was coming down, and everything came out. And
Wow. So then basically her whole situation ended up getting exposed. Wow.
I had to make decisions because I knew I couldn't afford to stay in my home. I couldn't make the mortgage payments.
Did you ever contact the FBI?
Because when the police came and we talked about it, they made it sound so daunting, so difficult to do that almost like impossible that you kind of felt shut down before you even started. And I was an absolute basket case at that time.
And this is the thing, right? Some people who might stumble upon this be like, "Oh man, like why would the police end up doing something like this? Like why would they tell her like, "Oh, there's like this is basically a lost cause." You got to think about it, right? A lot of these scammers that are doing these sort of things are in a whole different country, and the country that they might be doing this out of might be corrupt as well, right? And so, how are you going to find someone that's a criminal in a country that might be already a corrupt country, corrupt officials, where they might be getting paid off by these scammers with some of this money, right? And like, how are they even going to really track them? How are they going to go do this? And also, when you really think about it, even though technically she was like scammed because of this romance scam, she chose to give these scammers her money, right? She chose to give this person her money. And this is kind of like the whole situation with the now recent Tinder swindler, right? The main reason why he didn't really get in trouble with the law in terms of him frauding these girls is because these girls chose to give him their money, which is like a side to this that people really need to understand, right?
Because my world was crumbling down around me and I didn't know it.
If people hear this and they think, wow, she's not the sharpest crown in the box, the sharpest knife in the drawer, what do you want to tell them?
Um, that I'm shocked at myself because I consider myself sharper than that. Um,
And this is like a side note, but also the reason why I'm like stopping this so many times is because like YouTube, different companies, copyright stuff. This is crazy. But basically, for anyone who ends up falling from the scam, yes, it is foolish that someone got, they fell for the scam, right? It's foolish. But don't look down at yourself too much if you were to fall for something like this. Even if like you got, scammed in quotes for like 20 bucks, 40 bucks, right? Because someone wanted to like you to send them like a cash app for gas or something, right? Which by the way, cash apps, scams, Zelle scams are like going crazy nowadays. But don't feel too bad about yourself because the reality of the situation, you were someone who was in a very vulnerable position, who got that loneliness of your side taken advantage of, and you were manipulated, right? So don't feel too bad about yourself. Just understand, like, hey, these are signs that I need to look out for, right? And if someone's not willing, like, if you're like falling for someone due to like messaging and they're not willing to like video face message you, cut that off, right? Like, don't get involved in that. Like, be very careful.
and I could not figure out why I kept ignoring all the red flags.
I know why she kept ignoring it is because she was lonely. Like, that's the reality of the situation. Like, she was lonely, she was probably very depressed, and she was hopeful, you know? Hope is a very powerful thing. she probably was very hopeful that, like, hey, maybe, just maybe, this person that I'm talking to might be my future husband, right? Might be my future partner.
I literally was stepping on them, just walking right over them to get to the Western Union. Things that my stomach was going in knots. Everything inside of me was telling me was wrong. I just kept going.
Do you know now why you did that?
Well, I think um, in the beginning it was because I thought the way he portrayed it, we were going to have a good life together. It was never really about the money for me. Um, and then it got to the point where I knew that was never going to happen, but I thought maybe somehow I can get some of this money back. Because at that point I was deep.
Yeah, so again, originally about the whole loneliness side, wanting to be hopeful about a potential awesome remaining life with this person, realizing, wait a minute, this is kind of like sketchy. This is actually probably kind of like a romance scam or something. But perhaps, just perhaps, somehow I will be able to recoup something. Maybe because I've already put in hundreds of thousands of dollars into this whole sort of thing. So maybe if I see this through to the end, something good might actually come from it.
If you have any doubts at all about anybody, thoroughly check into it. I tried to do some checking, and again, I just kept making excuses for the things that should have been there and they weren't. And now I'm to the point where I have a real hard time trusting anybody about anything. And most of the women have said that.
That's sad.
Because it was humiliating. Very humiliating.
And this is the thing. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? It makes perfect sense as to why she would fall for this sort of scam. It makes perfect sense why she would keep on staying with the scam. And it would even make sense why she wasn't willing to tell her family and her friends because, like, wow, I literally fell for a scam and a very obvious scam at that because I was that lonely. And not only that, I lost so much money. And not just that, I also lost money that I got lent by my friends. Like, yeah, I could understand why it'd be super embarrassing.
And I felt, I don't want to say the word stupid, but I couldn't believe I had done this. I felt that I had more intelligence than that. Why? Why did this happen?
The reason was because, you're super lonely, right? So for anyone who ends up stumbling upon this, don't look, oh my god, $1 million in an online love scam? That is crazy. But don't look at yourself too down if you end up falling for something like this. Just understand that you have to be really cautious if you were to want to like go out and date like this, right? I mean, the best way to meet someone is literally in person. Just be like, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on?" Small talk, blah 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 kind of stuff, right? That is literally still the best way to meet someone or be introduced by like friends and family or something like that. That's the second best way to really meet someone. But if you want to learn how to get out of debt and manage your money, go to 40bucks.com. If you end up stumbling upon this episode, feel free to give your own thoughts about this whole romance scam and how like she fell for it, or even if you ever fell for a romance scam, and if you did, how much were you scammed for? Or if you know someone, how much did they get scammed for? We'll see in future episodes.